it's kind of like a parabola, right? So like you got to hustle your ass off in the beginning to just make as much money as you can and to get yourself out there, show your worth. And then once you're well known, people are like, damn, I want you. They will pay you more and then you can hustle less. So just in the time that
I do think there's like an asterisk though,
right?
But you have to hustle on the right things and you have to be willing to pivot when things are not working.
Hey there, my name's Ashley Church.
And I'm Erin West.
We were once newly promoted crime scene and latent print supervisors on mutual struggle buses as we both simultaneously tried to navigate through the challenges within our forensic units.
Now we run a business where we create tools and resources that we wish we had had to make these transitions easier. We like to talk about the experiences we've had in the forensic field, the good, the bad, and the ugly, in the hopes to create awareness around these issues and move the needle forward to create positive change in the forensic community.
So if you're a forensic professional, regardless of your years of experience, who's not afraid to dive into real, raw, and sometimes uncomfortable topics, you're in the right place.
This is the Forensics Unfiltered podcast.
Hey there, welcome back to the Forensics Unfiltered podcast. As you know, conference season is in full swing. Things are a bit crazy, and after taking a brief break in May while Erin and I and the Gap Science team were traveling to several conferences across the United States, we are so excited to be kicking the summer off with a special episode. Today we have a guest interview. You may have heard of her, but is with the Bloodstain Pattern Analyst Dr. Heidi Sievers herself. Dr. Sievers shares her journey of starting her own business, battling with imposter syndrome, dealing with those haters in the process, and offers some great advice for anyone looking to start their own forensic business. Plus, it is a great time to also tell you about our collaboration with Dr. Sievers on a brand new e-course. We're so excited about it. We've been working on it for months. It's titled Bloodstain Pattern Identification and Interpretation. And to give you a taste of what the course materials are like, we've also created a free downloadable resource titled Bloodstain Pattern Identification Guide. So be sure to check the show notes for those links. Also, this topic is a little bit out of the norm for us. So if you like this type of content, if you think you'd like a part 2, please make sure to let us know in the comments. Now, whether you're processing evidence, writing reports, or listening on your commute home, sit back, relax, and enjoy. Before we start this episode, our guest would like to share a disclaimer that the opinions shared are their own and not representative of their current or past employment. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy.
All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of Forensics Unfiltered. This episode is going to be very exciting. It's kind of venturing off a little bit of forensics as a whole. We're going to talk more about business and entrepreneurship, and who better to have on the podcast to talk about that than Miss Heidi Sievers herself. So I remember when I was doing the holiday gift guide, I think it was last year or maybe the year before, and I stumbled upon her Instagram. Back then it was Forensic Barbie, and she had the cutest stickers. And since then, you have kind of blown up, and now you're Sievers Forensics and the Bloodstain Doctor. So you've definitely evolved your business a little bit. But I'm sure that you've been working at this for a long time. I know a lot of people are like, oh, you're like an overnight success. But if you could just kind of tell us a little bit about your background first and who you are and how you started Sievers Forensics.
Yeah, so I started Sievers Forensics actually back in 2020, but it had a pretty slow start, to be honest. And I really didn't do much with it. It was really just to get the name, which I'm sure would not have been taken because it's not like it's very creative. Didn't think too hard on it, but yeah, you know.
Love it. Sometimes simple is best.
Yeah. Ironically, we were just at a training and this student was like, why did you name the company after your brother? And I'm like, my brother? And they're like, yeah, Austin. I'm like, that's my husband. Also, we have the same last name. Even if he was my brother, same last name. Like, okay. So yeah, I was like, that's kind of funny. But came from law enforcement side in forensics and then eventually moved over to academia, and then one school turned into 4 very fast. So I was teaching a lot, and I was getting a lot of requests for trainings, but I didn't really offer them yet. And I was getting quite a few requests for consults, which I didn't offer. So that's really where I got the idea to at least create a company, like get an LLC going on, so that way I could separate it a little bit. And that was back in 2020 and very slow moving. And then really once I got my CBPA, which was at the very end of 2020, I think I found out literally like the last day of 2020. Once that happened, then I really started marketing out like, hey, this is what I can offer. This is what I can do. We can do trainings, research, consultations. And then I was juggling trying to do that. And you guys know how much it takes, like putting into it, especially in the beginning. So I was doing that, and I was still working at 4 universities, 1 in person, 3 online. And I was teaching anywhere from probably 6 to 12 classes at a time. So I had a lot going
That's
on.
a lot of classes.
That is a lot of classes.
Dang, girl.
In person, I would have 1 or 2 or 3 times a week, just depending on the class. And then online, I had a couple that were hybrid in the sense that I would have to, physically sit and do a video and talk with the students, things like that. But then I had some that were asynchronous. So I was juggling a lot. And then eventually the requests for trainings and consults became so frequent that I'm like, well, I can't keep my in-person 40-hour job because I was barely even being there 40 hours. And luckily I had a very great boss who understood everything else I was doing and was pretty cool about me dipping in here and there, but it just wasn't fair to either side. But
yeah, so you started
snowballed.
your business during COVID.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like so many of us did. And that was
Right.
definitely a struggle during that time.
Yes.
Everything changed. Everything went from in-person classes to all kinds of like virtual and e-courses because people couldn't go to training anymore. But we're really excited to talk to Heidi today because we ourselves, and I think you have as well, have a lot of people come up to us and talk to us about starting a business. We get emails about it. People stop us at conferences, want to pick our brains on how to start this process and kind of the pros and cons of it. So we decided today that we would dive into that and just kind of being an entrepreneur and starting your own business and how to do that and if it's a good fit for you. So hopefully you guys will love this episode. So it sounds like for you that it didn't necessarily start as an idea of starting your own business, but business was coming to you. And then eventually you were like, okay, I've got to make this into a thing. Is that kind of how the path went for you?
In all transparency, I like being my own boss. And I've always been that way since I was a little kid. I'm not big on the micromanaging, lifestyle. So I always knew I wanted to be in a position where either I was the boss or I could be my own boss. And I always knew that even before I wanted to do forensics, just because I feel like that's my personality. I feel like I have a very leadership motivated personality. So I knew that was kind of my goal. And in academia, especially the universities I'm at, it was very autonomous. Like I got to do my own thing. I created all my own material. No one was sitting and auditing my lectures for the most part, unless it was like an annual audit. I got to come and go as I please. So I really enjoyed that. But I knew that I wanted to do more outside of college, although I do enjoy teaching. So I knew that that's what I wanted to do. And yeah, it kind of just snowballed. Like it wasn't, when I started the LLC, it wasn't like, okay, I'm going to totally disregard everything else. I knew that financially it was not going to be this overnight, just pummeling of wealth coming over me like in my dreams, So I knew it was going to take time and I knew I was just going to have to hustle it out. Thankfully, Austin is also the real MVP because he was willing to go in on the business as well while still doing his full-time job. So that was a decision we made in the beginning. As it got busier and busier, that's when we finally made the decision of, okay, I have to leave my full-time and I just have to dive right in. Because you do get to that point of, at some point I got to make a decision, unless you're a superhuman like Aaron, who still manages an entire
it's
but
it's difficult.
Yeah.
But someone told me a long time ago, and I think about this all the time. Someone told me a long time ago, you can't chase 2 rabbits. You do get to a point where you're not doing either very well.
Right.
and you do have to decide which rabbit you're going to chase. And I think that is probably a scary thing for a lot of people to make the leap into really stepping into this, which for me, I mean, Ashley knows, you and I may have talked about this, but like for me, it's really my husband, and my husband's terrified. That leap. I would have made that leap long ago. So I think that's exciting. But something that you mentioned several times that I want to bring up that I think is important for people to know if they're even considering going into a business on their own. You mentioned like initiative, motivation, being your own boss, all of those kinds of things.
Yeah.
I think it's really important to know when you're going into a business by yourself is there is nobody to hold you accountable, to make you get the work done, to make you like you are the one. So if you're not someone who is self-motivated, like if you need somebody to keep you on task, there's nobody to do that for you.
Right. It's going to be a struggle then. Yeah. So I'm like a mix of a procrastinator, but also very motivated. So I will procrastinate, and then that night I will blow out work like no one's ever seen, and I'll stay up all night and drink my Celsius, and that works for me. Austin is the opposite. So when a task is given to him, he sits down and does it right away. So we're kind of a nice pairing. But no, there is no one to be like, have you got this done? What? This is due. This is like, no one's on you. And you kind of talked about like this overnight success. Like there's so much that I think people don't realize that goes on behind the scenes, branding yourself and marketing yourself and putting yourself out there. And sometimes you got to do stuff for free. Sometimes you have to invest money, and there's so much behind it that I don't think anybody overnight starting a business is going to wake up and their inbox is full of bookings and collabs. It doesn't happen for anybody. So, and in the beginning, like if I just sat stagnant, I would have been running back to my old job because nothing would have happened. So I think that is something too that people don't realize is you have to be your own advocate. And in the beginning, like you have to be your own everything, because like you can't afford to hire people on in the beginning.
Yeah.
So I think that's to what people don't realize is it is such a hustle.
So this is kind of in line with what we were talking about, but what are your favorite things about being an entrepreneur and running your own business? I know you already talked a little bit about being your own boss, being the boss lady, but
being the boss lady.
What other things do you like about being an entrepreneur and having your own business?
So scheduling, I love. I always was career first, family second person. Always. Didn't matter what job I had. It was just always career, job first, family later. And now I can control that. So I don't have to be gone holidays anymore. I don't have to miss birthdays. And it's nice because yes, we do travel a lot for work, but when we're gone, we're gone. And when we're home. So when my kids have me home, they have 100% of me, and not, and then when they go to bed, that's when I work, or when they're at school, that's when I work. So I really have the flexibility to be able to create that schedule, and that I really value over everything. That's kind of sometimes when I'm like, oh, wow, we're in a little bit of like a slow season, or this week has been really slow. That's what keeps me going. I love that. I love being able to make so many connections, having your own business, and you're able to just really reach out to people, meet people at conferences. As you travel, you meet more people, and you do just become a little more well-known, which is nice. Just because of what we do, I really like the fact that we can control the product we're putting out there, rather than working for a company or still just working as a tech or an investigator. And we've all been to trainings where we attend a training and we leave on Friday and we're like, well, what the hell was that? So we really, I feel like I've been to some recently where I'm like, okay. So we've all been to those, but in the position we're in, we can really control that the information going out is up to date, relevant, innovative information, and not from 1990. So we can control what's going out and making sure that the people coming to these trainings, who might be from departments that they only get one training a year or one training every other year, and especially when it is something so niche, like BPA, leadership, management, that might be the only one they ever get. So in knowing that, we're able to control the quality of the product they're getting. And even if that is the only one they get, it's going to be able to last them. So I really like contributing to the field in that perspective, that we can control what's being put out there. And really, we're responsible for ourselves. So if someone had a really bad time at our training, okay, well, that's on me. So I'm in control of the materials they get. I'm in control of the materials that get presented. I'm in control of the experience they had. So I can learn a lot from that as well. In a non-control freak way, I like being in control, because then if you're in control, you have the power to change it, So
Love it.
no one's impervious to change. So there's always things doable
Yeah.
without being
There's
in
a couple
control
of things that you said in there that I really like. So a couple of things that you said that I really like is you get to control your own schedule. I'm kind of more in awe about how you're doing it now, because I'm also in that young mom stage. And
Mhm.
I think it's also contributing that this particular year, we've just taken on more things. We've added more
Mhm.
things to our plate. And I definitely don't feel like I've mastered that separation just yet of when I'm home during these hours, I'm just their mom full time. It's hard to like shut the entrepreneur brain off, at least for
Yeah.
me right now. And also being able to like market yourself as well. You obviously are very extroverted. Erin and I, very extroverted people. So
Mhm.
like going to conferences and meeting new people, like that's something that we enjoy and it gives us energy and we think it's fun. I think some people that get into entrepreneurship that are more introverted, it can be a little bit harder for them to sell themselves. We have talked to a few people that are interested in starting their business or already started their business. And we're like, you have to get uncomfortable and market yourself. And the only way that you're going to do that is put yourself in front of people. And that's kind of terrifying for some people.
It definitely is. And I'll give you a great example. So I am very extroverted. I will go up to anybody at any time and talk to them. But that's because I have forced myself to. I always say I am a closeted extrovert, because would I rather stay in my bubble and talk to no one? Absolutely. But I will. I have no problem public speaking. I have no problem walking right up to someone and introducing myself. But that's because I know I have to. And that's just something I've conditioned myself for. And that came too with like security in myself and confidence with myself, because when in the beginning stages, I really struggled with imposter syndrome. And
Yes, girl.
so
I was
bad.
just going to bring this up.
Literally so bad. So I was like, oh my God, I can't go say hi to that person. Like, this person is such a well-renowned XYZ, or they're the owner of this company. I can't go say hi. And now I'm like, psh, hi, have you heard of me? You know what I mean? Like, what's your name? My name's Heidi, and now I don't care. So that came with confidence, I think, for me. But Austin is such an introverted person. He hates public speaking. If I was like, hey, go say hi to that person, he's like, absolutely not. So he does not like it. So I have had to really push him. And that has made him better. And he struggled with imposter syndrome too, because he's like, but everyone knows you. And I'm like, okay, well, there's a reason people know me, because I do this. So I've made him. And I think as people start to recognize him too, and like with trainings, like as he starts to get good reviews as well, it's been building up his confidence. And now he's getting a little more extroverted. But the training that I was texting you both about, I'm like, what do? I have no voice. He had to speak. And like Aaron's taken one of my classes, like he doesn't talk, he doesn't lecture. I lecture and he does one-on-one stuff. That's his element. And that's like our little system. So I was like, you're gonna have to lecture. You've heard me give these lectures 100 times. I know you can do it. And I know, you just get nervous. And he's like, I mean, I'll do it. And he went up there and he did so good. And I was like, well, hopefully that helped. He thought he didn't know the material well, right? Like I think he was struggling with imposter syndrome, but he was able to answer everyone's questions and give examples and give case, and just go through it with them. So I think some of that too just comes with confidence in yourself. And that's what a lot of people that have started their business will reach out to me and say, like, how come you're so open to just giving lectures and popping in and talking to this person? And I'm like, well, it definitely comes with time. And if you were like, hey, go up and give a lecture on, I don't know, something that is not in my wheelhouse, I'd be like, no, thank you. So I think it has to really be something that you are confident in yourself with, but it does take those uncomfortable situations and putting yourself out there and understanding that if you put yourself out there, there's a chance that you might fail, but there's a chance on the flip side, it could go really well. So
for those that don't know what imposter syndrome is, because I know what it is, but I'm sure there's plenty of people that probably they may know the idea of it, but haven't heard that term before. So can you explain what imposter syndrome is? Because I feel like everyone at some point or another they're going to cycle through imposter syndrome throughout their business?
100%. So for, at least for me, imposter syndrome, like if I'm putting it my own definition, would be, you know, maybe you're in a position to do a certain job, or you are an expert. You have all of these qualifications that would say that you are, but deep down in yourself, you feel like you don't belong, or you just feel like you are wearing a mask and you're fooling people into thinking that you are someone that you're really not. So when I first really started marketing, I had that feeling. And
have you heard about The Vault? It's the first ever membership exclusively for forensic training, and we have packed it full of goodies. So get this, you get instant access to over 20 webinar replays on everything from landing a job in forensics to field training to supervision. But that's not all. We're also throwing in some of our top e-courses, our Field Training Officer Virtual Academy, and exclusive Forensic Supervisor Success kits from past virtual summits. And guess what? You get everything mentioned for just $29 a month, or you can grab a whole year for only $300. And we know many forensic professionals lately are paying for their own training, so we want to make sure training is affordable and accessible for everyone. There is fresh content every month, and that also makes it an endless learning opportunity for you. So it's a no-brainer. Join the Vault today and be part of the forensic education revolution. I'll include the link in our show notes, or you can head to our website to learn more. Don't miss out. Unlock your potential with the Vault.
so when I first really started marketing, I had that feeling. And Austin is my little hype man, and he would have to remind me, there's a reason there's only 65 people in the world that have your certification, like little things like that. But you may have certifications, you may have degrees, you may have years of experience, you may have teaching experience, you may have deemed an expert, all these things, but somehow deep down, you're questioning your worth, or you're questioning if you deserve a seat at the table. So that is something I think, like you said, probably everyone starting a business feels, and that does get better with time. I will tell you that.
Yeah,
every once in a while, I'll be in a situation where I'm like, ooh, how did I get wrapped up into this, you know? And I'm like, I don't belong here. Like, for example, when I got put on the consensus body for AF's Bloodstain board, I'm looking at the names that are on there, and I'm like, someone messed up. They sent me the wrong letter. I was supposed to get the deny letter, because when you have big names on there, you're just like, I don't fit in with them. And I know Aaron and I have talked about this too. And just like the new generation of people coming in, the OGs of forensics, like they're getting older and they're retiring. And it's just this kind of slow yet sudden shift. I feel like that's happening everywhere. I think it's in every discipline in forensics that we can see that. There's new names coming in everywhere. And those names are just growing in popularity and kind of snowballing. And I think that's just the shift that we're in right now. So it does get better with time. You know, every time I go to a conference, and I'm sure you guys feel the same way, like people recognize you, or they're like, oh, I love your stuff, or I've attended your classes, or whatever it may be, or every time you get a good review on a class, it builds up your confidence, and then kind of like a negative correlation. As that builds, the imposter syndrome will go down. But it takes time.
So true.
I still struggle with it all the time.
It's so true. I think when you do start at the beginning, you're like, why would people come to my class? Like, what do I have to say that's better
100%.
than what anyone else has to say? But it
Right.
does change over time. Ashley and I have been doing this for 5 years now. And at this point, we're like, let's try it. Who cares? Like,
Yeah.
what's the worst that could happen? You
Same.
know?
Same. I'm the same
But
way.
in the
I'm like,
beginning,
make a full out-
yeah.
people know
In
my
the
name.
beginning,
Whatever.
there was a lot of fear associated with like, oh, what if we put this thing out and people don't like it? Now we're like, whatever, we'll try it.
Right.
You know?
And
Give
you
it
want to
a
know
shot.
something? You want to know something funny? Austin and I say this all the time. If you think of the biggest names you know in the field, right? Everyone has something that they've done that is silly or stupid or embarrassing. Some legally, some morally, some just they've embarrassed themselves, but everyone has done that, even the biggest names that you know. So even if you go and you give a lecture at a conference, especially for people that haven't lectured at conferences before and they want to do it for the first time, even if you stutter or you miss words or you answer a question wrong, huge names have done far worse. So it's going to be okay. And when you make a mistake, you learn from it. And then that means when you do the next one, it has to be better than the first one. So sometimes you just have to make a fool out of yourself. And I've done that before. It's fine. And another thing too, I feel like, especially being a woman, is you are going to get criticism. I have this one freaking guy who is like such a hater, and it drives Austin crazy. And I just like brush it off at this point. I don't even care. But like, I feel like you're gonna get people that, I don't know if it's because like you're a female. I don't know if it's because you're young. I don't know what it is. But I feel like you get those people who are just gonna be your haters. To me, I used to take that so personal. I used to take it so personal when people would not agree with me, would comment like mean things or give me like criticism that was just completely unsolicited. And it used to just bother me so much. And then I really kind of just realized that if you don't have people that criticize you or are like jealous of your success or whatever, then you're not doing it right, because no one is worried about people behind them. Right?
Yeah.
So like,
I think Ashley and I have come to the kind of belief that like we're not going to be everybody's flavor.
No.
And so if you are, you know, if you're embracing your business and you're being true to yourself and who you are as a person, and that's what you're putting out there into the world, there's going to be people that love that and people that hate that.
Oh yeah.
And unfortunately, in this day and age, the people that hate that will not keep that to themselves, because people just blast whatever they want on internet and comments and whatever. But you can't let that stop you. Like we, back in the beginning, Ashley posted a lot of like reels and stuff like that, and they were hilarious. And a lot of people followed us because of that, but it also was very upsetting for a lot of people, and people would leave negative comments and stuff like that. And we used to talk about it back then, like if we stopped working on the business because some people didn't like it or it wasn't some people's flavor, we would never be where we are today. But I think, I mean, we've talked about it a little bit, that it really takes a long time to build a business. I think that's why a lot of businesses like fail so quickly, because people don't invest for as long as it takes. I also want to say one of the pros I think that Ashley and I really love that we didn't know would be part of the business is just all the creativity that's associated with it. You know, I think that it's
definitely my jam.
Yeah, it's really fun. And I'm not creative in the same way that Ashley is. I feel like we're both creative in different ways. But like Ashley is clearly a graphic designer it was undercover and we had no idea, you know. But we do a lot of like brainstorming sessions now, and you and Austin probably do too, where we're like, what if we tried this? Like, what do you think about this? Like, why don't we give this a shot? And being able to like change the trajectory of your business so rapidly because you control it, and then being able to be part of all of those extra things. I mean, the things that we have had to learn how to do is just outrageous. Like I know we're web designers, you know, like designing our website, designing all of these, like all these other things that we never thought.
Event coordinator.
Content creator, accountant. Like
Yep. All those things. Those are all pieces of it. We were just joking the other day. I don't know if you're still at this point, but people email us and be like, hey, you know, my IT department wants to talk to your IT department. And you're like, great, I'm the IT department.
Hello, it's me.
It's me.
I'm the problem.
Yes. So love that.
Yeah.
So we talked about some pros. So what do you think some of the big cons are of being an entrepreneur?
The cons are literally the same as the pros, to be honest. So it is nice, obviously, having control, but then that means you are doing literally everything, and it's very hard to relinquish control. So even when you have someone to help you or hire someone on, it's very hard to resonate your vision with them or to just like let go, because it's like your baby, you know. I will say, if you're going to do it, make sure you have like an accountant, because taxes suck, at least for me. I hate them. But I would say too, just kind of like you were saying, juggling that mom life and having the shut off switch, it's hard because there is no, all right, I clock in for my shift, I clock out, I go home. And not saying that's how forensics is, because we all know we get called out, we stay late, whatever, but then you can clock out. right? And my phone rings all the time because when we train people, we tell all of our students, like, if you ever have a question, if you ever are on a scene, if you ever have a case and you just don't know, you have a question, you have something about blood, call us, FaceTime us, we'll help you free of charge. And they love that and they do it all the time. So I am constantly getting phone calls, FaceTimes, text messages of scenes of, how would you describe this blood stain? Or what is this? I feel like that doesn't shut off. And it is hard to juggle that because you want to obviously be present as a mom, but you also want to be a good business owner and there for your clients. So it is that kind of struggle too. And I would say a con, at least in the beginning, is almost saying yes to almost everything. Like, it's very difficult to turn down anything when you're just starting out. And a lot of it, it's like, I really don't freaking want to do this, but I have to because I got to get my name out there. I need to get more speaking engagements under my belt or more events under my belt or whatever it may be. So there's a lot of yes in the beginning. And yes is not always my favorite word. So I think that is definitely a con, but you have to do it. It's just there's things that you have to do that you don't get to decline. And I actually do enjoy the hustle. Like, I do enjoy working hard for it, but I think that is something a lot of people don't expect. It's like, oh, you own your own business, just do whatever you want. I'm like, well, it doesn't really work like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so much.
I think we fell into similar traps over the years of maybe overextending some of the things that we were doing. I think we've dialed back, not necessarily saying we don't want to help students, but like, maybe we're not available 24/7 anymore. And we definitely like said yes to so many things for free, you know, at the beginning. And I feel like we're starting to get to that point where we can really figure out like what's the best interest of the business. It's not that we don't always want to say no. It's like, okay, well, what's the best investment for our time as well as expenses, you know, this stuff costs money. And it's not just like free, it's also like actually taking away some of the funds for the business to do some of these things.
And that's so true as well. So you're stuck kind of in that limbo of, okay, well, I want to market myself. I want to meet more people. I want to go to these conferences. They might waive your weekly fee, which we've talked about that. But so they may waive.
If they even do that.
If they do that, right? So maybe you might get a waived fee, right? But like you said, it's really then bringing you negative because your flight, your hotel, your airfare. So all of that is going against the business because it's funds now, like $1,000 you can't use for that. So there's that, and we were just saying yes to everything. We were going to all kinds of conferences, like dishing out all this money. And same thing, like we reach a point now where we're more than happy to do conferences and we will do them for free. Like, we won't make money on them, but now there's a lot of II divisions, state divisions that are covering travel, you know, and they're like, we'll give you the thing for free. We can't pay you to speak, but we'll cover your travel. And I'm like, I will absolutely do that because again, it's basically just free marketing at that point once I get there. And, you know, we've really, like you said, scaled back from just dumping thousands of dollars into traveling. And a lot of times it's traveling there, speaking, and then traveling home. And as we've talked about, a lot of organizations won't let you just do that. You still got to pay for the week. So it's like, well, that's so much just for a day, but you don't want to be gone for the whole week because you have families at home. So it would just be so much. And then we were just losing thousands of dollars for less than 24 hours. So we're getting to the point now where we are more than willing to go and do those, but it has to kind of just break even. Or, you know, obviously you're going to pay, you're paying for
be worth it. Yeah.
But yeah, but we would pay for that anyways. But yeah, it goes into, well, how many people are going to be there? What are some of the speakers that are going to be there? Are there going to be lectures that really could also benefit us? Could we go see workshops and lectures and things like that? And who are we going to have the opportunity to talk with and meet with and things like that? So there's not many worse feelings than going to a conference that you pour thousands of dollars to, and it's that want moment.
We definitely learned that too when we first started going to conferences. For those of you listening might not be aware of this, but the speakers, they're not getting to attend the conference for free. A lot of speakers are paying to go to the conference to teach, and then paying the travel, paying hotel. Some of them are also paying to sponsor, paying for booths and things like that. So we learned that pretty quickly too, that attending a conference as a speaker detracts money from the business. And I agree with Heidi, if it's not a conference that's building your business, building your connections and all of that, then that is an extra expense that we were not really anticipating. Like we were really surprised when the first conference we went to, we had to pay to attend the conference, even though we were teaching and had sponsored a booth. So it was like, wait a minute.
Yeah. Well,
wait, I'm confused.
And too, and for us, I mean, relatively, like for us to do training, it is relatively like low overhead. It's not like we have a ton of supplies that cost a lot of money. But when we do a 4-hour workshop at a conference, we're still supplying the blood, all the materials, the paper, it is just added expenses and added expenses and expenses that we're throwing away. Like I'm very happy to train and educate people, but it just gets thrown away.
And you may also not know that a lot of the conference workshops will have a fee associated with them. That is not used to pay the instructor. Like
nope.
If Heidi has a workshop and it's $35 for her workshop, she does not get that money. So it doesn't go to cover. It doesn't go to cover her supplies or pay her a fee for being there. She's still paying all of that out of pocket. So those are some interesting things to bring up for cons.
And there's some things too, I think if you are contemplating a conference, sometimes what you get out of it is more than just people signing up for a lecture or people signing up for your trainings. So for example, we got asked to go to one and all travel is paid for. So we would be volunteering our time, which is no big deal. But in going there, it's cold case themed. So it's a lot of people bringing forth their cold cases. So that gives us the opportunity to build our experience with cases, right? Build our contacts with people who may be looking for experts in the future, but also working on cases while we're there, which the more cases you can work on when you're in the business of consultation, the better, right? So it would be for free, but you're still building that, right? So things like that would obviously weigh in a little bit more towards, is it worth it? But what we've started doing is not that like our marketing budget is insane, but we have added in like attending conferences into that. So then that way, like if we're going to spend the money, we, and if it's not a conference that they're going to pay travel and it's not a conference they're going to do XYZ, we save it for that. But there's just things we've learned. Like, would we do a booth again? Probably not. It just
we learned that the hard way.
And because I really think that when you're not tied to a booth, you actually have more opportunities to walk around, meet people, make connections, go sit in lectures where you might be able to engage with the speaker or other people attending. I just feel like there's so many other opportunities than, sitting at the booth sometimes. But I mean, of course, if you have
we came to the same conclusions. For sure.
And it's trial and error. You sign your $800 check and you realize like, all right, no more.
So I know we obviously talked about quite a few of the cons. Something else that I feel like maybe can be a little bit shocking, and maybe it will be like a con for some people once they start their own business as well. It can be very appealing when you see other people promote, oh, I started my own business and I only work 4 hours a week. And like that can be very attractive for people to be like, oh, like I'm working at least 50 hours doing crime scene work or field work or latent print work, whatever. They think that starting their own business is going to equal working less hours, or maybe they don't have to hustle as hard or work as hard. So do you think, since starting your own business, do you think it's been easier or harder? Do you work more hours or less hours than your traditional forensic job?
No. So it's a different type of work. Am I sifting through soup sandwich on a couch? No. Am I out in the heat busting my ass? No. So it's different. And like you said, people are like, oh, you have it so nice. I get that constantly. Oh, it must be nice going to TJ Maxx on a Tuesday afternoon. And it's like, okay, do you want to come sit with me when it's 3:00 in the morning? And I'm like, so it's just a different type of work because you're juggling so many things at one time. Tell people like, I'm not wearing all black in a hoarder house, stepping on human and dog feces the whole day, but it's constant emails, constant phone calls. I'm still writing reports, and the reports I'm writing are not, I responded to this crime scene. Not that those are easy, but they're not just those plug and play reports anymore, right? They're lengthy. Most of the reports are 10, 15 pages long. Erin knows the absolute torture I put her through from writing the report. But my reports are long, right? And they're lengthy, and there's such a higher expectation when I write them that the stress that comes from them is just so different than the stress of writing reports when I was still with an agency, because you still have that safety net you still have that. Well, that goes beyond the scope of my expertise blanket statement you can throw out, right? Well, I don't have that anymore, right? It should be in the scope of my expertise if I'm consulting. So there's just a higher expectation that comes from it. It's much more lengthy. It involves much more meetings. I've been working on a case right now. I've been working on it 3 weeks because it's an ongoing case. More information's coming, more photos are coming, and it just takes time. So it's not I cleared a call, I come back, my evidence is done, my report's done, I'm done, right? I have like this that's outstanding. And then now I have working at all my schools, I have all my grading to do. We're about to finish the manuscript of the textbook, so I have to finish up that, or I have editing to do that I need to add to that. I'm working on webinars. I'm working on the next flyer I need to post on my Instagram. I'm collaborating with this company, or I'm getting ready to travel to go on a training for this company, or whatever it may be. There's just so many different things that are left pending or open, which I think people really take for granted. A lot of times when you're done and you're on your weekend, and most agencies, like can't have outstanding reports or evidence pending when you're about to go on your weekend, but that doesn't happen. Like there is no weekend because you always have things pending. So for me, I coordinate my work time when I don't have the kids. So when they're at school or when they go to bed, that's when I work. So then that means I don't get to go to bed at 10 p.m., right? It means I have to wake up super early while they're still sleeping. It means that while they're in school, sometimes I take some time for myself because I'm about to put my head through the wall. But for the most part, when they're at school, I'm like this, right? And I'm trying to get as many things done in such a short period of time. And I do miss that. I miss dropping the kids off at school, and then I drive my little van to work, I do my shift, and then I come home. There is some sense of security with that you don't necessarily have, I would say. Like, you know what I mean? When you're running your own business, because you constantly have to be on.
I want to talk about the security too as one other con that I think is really important.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is the major fear with my husband, is that the job that I have as a crime scene manager has a secure every 2-week guaranteed paycheck is always the same. Now, when you're running your own business, your paycheck is directly related to your hustling ability. If you don't hustle, you don't get paid. And I think something that is also important to know is, like, Ashley and I don't know if this is the same for you guys, but we really didn't pay ourselves like a regular salary for a long, long, long time. Yeah. And I think that we were always focused on, when we had the opportunity to grow the business larger, we did. So we reinvested and grew larger, and reinvested and grew larger, and got more instructors, got a training coordinator, got more programs, software, website, things like that to help us out. To help us expand and get bigger. Now, we could have paid ourselves and stayed very small, but we have always expanded each time we've had the opportunity to do so. But with that being the case, we solidly went for probably several years where we didn't pay ourselves. If we went and taught a class, we would pay ourselves an instructor fee like you would get if you went and taught a normal class. But I think that that's something that people probably don't realize either, is that the money is coming in, like people are paying you, your company, right? And you can spend that money. But you've already talked a lot about all of the expenses and the all of the stuff that you have to buy, and all of the travel and supplies and conferences and all of this stuff. And you can choose not to do those things and just take the money yourself, or you can choose to do those things that expand your business. And so we made the choice pretty early on to expand, which means that pay was not regular. It didn't come in regularly. And it also took a long time before we were really paying ourselves. So did you find that to be similar?
I would say it's a little different just because my partner's my husband. So like the money all goes to the same place. But yeah, I mean, he is like the king of investments. Like in general, he's just a big investment stocks. Like he's that kind of guy. And I am very much let's blow it as soon as it hits the bank account. That's just my toxic type. So that's why I need him to keep me accountable. But that's why we have our other jobs, right? So that's why teaching at schools, like I teach at some adjunct, but I do have every 2 weeks I get a paycheck, and that's where my health insurance comes out of. You know what I mean? So I have those stable, I don't have to worry about health insurance. I don't have to worry about if I'm, every 2 weeks, I'm still getting a paycheck that is sustainable for our bills, right? So that does keep us very secure. And same thing with him. He's fortunate because he gets to pick and choose his days as well. Like if he wants to work this day, whatever. So, and he's just like a workaholic. So if we're not traveling, he's working, unless I'm like, please take this day off. It is my birthday. But so so he likes money. So it is a very good pairing, but he won't buy himself anything, like not even socks. And I'm just like, oh, I deserve a treat today. But he is very much on the we need to invest in the business. So we just applied for a design patent, and it's not cheap. We put a good chunk of money that we made in like the last quarter into that, and not doing it ourselves because who knows what would happen. So like, we got an attorney and paid the attorney and got the retainer for the attorney and then paid for the patent fee and then paid for the application. You know what I mean? So like we put a lot of money into that because we know that that's a side that he's going to handle, that we want to grow our business into. I feel like the money we make just indirectly gets turned into more things to promote the business. So kind of like you guys were saying. Yeah. And whether that be set away for when we do classes ourselves, because that's a big goal of ours this year, is to do them autonomously. So then that's the money we use for travel. So we're not necessarily pulling money out of the money we're making from training, if that makes sense. So, structuring it that way. But yeah, like I think that's definitely a misconception that people think, is that you must be just rolling in the dough. It's not. But people also
I do think eventually you get there. I think
if
you commit to it for long enough.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. It is not a bad life, right? I will say that.
Yeah.
But what people also don't realize is the harder you hustle, it is just positively correlated with the harder you hustle, the more money you're going to make, and eventually the more money you can make, and then you will be able to hustle less. So it's kind of like a parabola, right? So like you got to hustle your ass off in the beginning to just make as much money as you can and to get yourself out there, show your worth. And then once you're well known, people are like, damn, I want you. They will pay you more, and then you can hustle less. So just in the time that
I do think there's like an asterisk though, because this is another thing that we see in the forensic field in general, not just like small businesses,
right? But
you have to hustle on the right things, and you have to be willing to pivot when things are not working.
Yes.
So like if they're like, well, I keep promoting this one training, or I keep trying this particular format, but I'm not making any money. Like you gotta hustle and try something else. Right. You can't just keep doing the same thing that's not working.
100%. And I would say in the very beginning, especially if like training is your thing, whatever it is that is your thing, you got to partner with other companies that will get your name out there for you. So well-established companies that the second they post a training, boom, they're filled. That's what you got to do. And then you get your name out there, more people learn about you. And then the amount of business we have gotten from traveling and training with other companies is insane. Because while we're there, they're like, hey, I have a case. Can you look at it? So then the consults snowball. And then they're like, oh, hey, do you guys do trainings just yourself? Oh, well, we do. Like you can book. And we never, say like, give me all your business. We say if you're more comfortable booking with that other company, go for it. You can request us as an instructor, or you can also book through us directly, right? So you get a lot of business from doing that. But in the beginning, you have to make those partnerships, and you got to get yourself out there. And then same thing, just with that positive correlation. Like the more your name is out there, then the more you can kind of step away from those other entities that you don't have to like piggyback on. You get to be autonomous and be yourself and have people come to you. I think that's what turns a lot of people off in the very beginning, is there's so much hustle in the beginning and doing so many things and understanding, well, this isn't working, but this is, people love this, people hate this conference didn't work, but this format does work, or whatever. There's so much learning while you're hustling that it's exhausting. And I think that's what turns a lot of people off, is there is a lot of rejection in the beginning, but you just got to break through that. And then you'll be shocked at like the emails you get of, hey, we want to host your class, or hey, we want you to do this consult, or hey, this, whatever. And then you start to almost become in demand.
Yes. Love it.
But it's a struggle. Don't give me, you guys know more than anybody.
Yeah.
But.
Yeah. You gotta,
it's not easy.
You gotta do it. No, it's definitely not easy. I think you have no idea until you really get into it. So
until you're like in the weeds, I don't think people really understand. And I feel like the three of us are all very similar, like bubbly, and we have like an edge to us. And like you said, we're not always everyone's cup of tea. Like I'm like the cup of tea that you drink and there's whiskey in it, and you're like, whoa, that was unexpected. Which is ironic because I don't drink, but still.
It was spicy.
Yeah, but people are just like, whoa. I feel like you have to be that way because people that stay in the rut don't get put apart. You know, like we always joke that our motto is like make BPA fun again, and it's not really anything political. It's just a play on that. And some people like hate that motto. They're like, oh my God. I'm like, lighten up, like relax. It's just, but like that's our motto. It doesn't need to be this boring. And now we're going to talk about terminology. Like it doesn't have to be like that. Like it can be fun. It can be engaging. Like we can laugh. We can tell stories. I had Aaron processing coffee grounds mixed in blood. Like it can be fun.
100%.
Yeah, like bashing, curb stomping heads. So it can be fun and you can still learn. And it doesn't have to be this drag, mundane 1985. This doesn't have to be like that anymore.
Yeah.
Preach. Yeah, I can't with those types of trainings.
It just drives me nuts. And I'm like, what? Like, no one wants to hear me talk for that long. I don't want to hear me talk for that long. So you have to do stuff that's fun and engaging and relatable to students. And I think that's also a hard part too, is staying relevant and not just doing the same thing over and over. You gotta have things that are new, exciting, innovative, and I think a big part of it that you guys do so well, and I really try and emulate, is like the transparency, being real. And it's so funny because when I do trainings and people meet me or whatever, and they're like, oh, I follow you and I wanted to meet you and you're way different than I thought you were going to be. I hear that all the time. And I don't know if that's code for like you were a bitch. I don't know. But I hear that so much. You would be shocked how many people say that to me. And I'm just like, why? And they're like, well, we just didn't, we thought, because social media is fake, so.
Well, we're really, we're really are a very colorful community. Any department that you've ever worked for, we're a very colorful community. And then you go to classes and it's like so prim and proper, and people don't tell you the real stories about their struggles and their scenes and all of that. And it's like, I don't know. I think that's why a lot of people find like your classes and our classes so much fun, because like you go and it's
just real.
Like it's just real. Yeah. Like these are real cases, real stories, like real people doing this actual work. So,
and I think people respect too when you share like your mistakes. You guys know how the field is of like, I'm perfect, I'm gatekeeping, I'm not telling you my secrets. Like, okay, no.
No.
I cannot stand that. And people are always shocked that I'm like, oh, you want a copy of like my report template? Here you go. You want a copy of my experimentation outline? Here you go. You want me to write you a sample report? Here you go. I don't care, because guess what? It's physically impossible for one person to just have a monopoly on every bloodstain case to ever exist. It's not going to happen. And you also know how this field is that a lot of choices are personality based. So there's some people out there that would just never hire me because they don't like me. And I could name quite a few for you. And that's fine. You don't have to like me, right? But I'm just not that type of person. I'm not a gatekeeper. And I think that's why like people always say like, oh, you're way different. We didn't realize that you would be so down to earth. And I don't know if people think I would be like stuck up. I don't know. But I'm like, no, I'm pretty chill, So, but I think that's so important is the transparency and just being a real person. And the biggest advice I can give people that do start their business is if you do start to get well known. Like there was a girl at FDII, sweetest girl. And she was like, oh my gosh, I follow you on Instagram. I came all the way from Ohio because I wanted to meet you. And like, I almost cried because that was so nice and so sweet. But does that mean I'm the best thing since sliced bread? Absolutely freaking not. I'm literally the heel of the bread. So, but I think people get such a big head.
You're not the heel, girl. You're not the heel.
I'm toast with jelly, damn it. So like I think people get such
peanut butter jelly.
Yeah, peanut butter jelly. So I think people get such a big head sometimes starting businesses of like, well, I own my own business. Like I'm an expert, I'm a consultant. And it's like, cool. I don't know. Like I
think it does the opposite for me. It
literally I'm like
the fuck out of me.
I'm like, oh, I'm just like, all right, I suck. Yeah. So, and that's just the best advice I can give people is like humility and just transparency and realness is going to get you way farther. That doesn't mean everyone's going to like you because just naturally that's impossible, but it's just going to bring you so much more respect.
I feel like we can talk about this all day long. And maybe if people really want to hear more, maybe we can do like a part 2. So
Yeah.
if you enjoy this type of content, definitely let us know in the comments, send us an email, and maybe we can have Heidi on for another part 2. But before we leave today, can you just maybe give any last minute tips or tricks to anybody that might be thinking about starting their own business themselves?
So the best tips and advice I can give, especially if you're in that brainstorming stage and you haven't quite made the leap yet, is know what your thing is going to be. And I know thing is a very lame term to use, but you have to have a thing, right? You have to have something that's marketable and it's going to make you stand out. And it doesn't necessarily have to be like a catchy Instagram handle or anything like that. But what is your specialty going to be? And what are you going to offer companies, law enforcement agencies, legal counsel, whatever it is, what are you going to offer them that is different than what they can get in-house, right? You have to be able to fulfill a need that they don't necessarily have in their pocket. And that might be consultation, it might be training, it might be mentorship, it could be a lot of different things. So know what your strengths are, but also know your weaknesses. So anyone that really knows me knows that blood is my hyperfixation, but I am very confident in what I'm not comfortable in. So if I get asked to do a training on certain things, I will very respectfully say, no, that is not my strongest suit, but I have someone that would be a great fit for that. So you have to know what you know, but know what you don't know. So don't try and be a jack of all trades, try and be a master of one, or, just at least a realm of something. So have a very specific thing that is marketable to people and understand who your target audience is. And that might change as you start to get into that business, but just have a general vision of where you want to go. And most importantly, have support, because that leap is scary and it can be scary, but just know that there is support out there. People ask me all the time, what should I do, and for advice. So there's people that have made that leap that I'm sure will support you, but also have a support system in place, such as family, that will help you navigate some of those tough decisions and tough days. But those are my 2 little tidbits.
Thank you so much for being here with us today, Miss Heidi. Before we check out, tell everyone that's listening where they can get in touch with you if they have questions, or where they can find some of your upcoming courses and all of that.
So anyone who is interested in connecting with me, learning more about what we do, you can head over to sieversforensics.com. You can find all of my training courses and contact info there. You can also connect with me on LinkedIn under Heidi Sievers or Sievers Forensics, and then on Instagram as the Bloodstain Doc.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here with us today. This was an awesome conversation. Hopefully you guys loved it. Drop in the comments below if you would like to hear more of this, because we can just keep it going.
Part two.
Yes, part 2. But thanks so much for joining us for another episode of our Forensics Unfiltered podcast, and we will see you guys at the next one.
Thank you so much for being here and listening to Forensics Unfiltered. If you liked this episode, would you do us a favor and leave a review letting us know specifically what you liked about this topic? It will only take a minute, but it will really help us plan future episodes so we can bring you more topics that you want to listen to. We'll be sure to provide any links from today's episode in our show notes on our website. Head to www.gapscience.com. Until next time, stay safe out there.